Rasley is literally a brilliant political operative with decades of experience in over 300 campaigns at every level. These days, he is the managing editor of a superb publication, Richard Viguery's Conservative HQ, which you can find at conservativehq.com. George, it's good to have you with us. Welcome back to Securing America.
Thanks for having me back, Frank.
You've been reporting on a whole host of subjects about basically the home front, and I'm anxious to take stock with you on several different aspects of it, George. Maybe just starting with the proposition that I think a lot of people still find unimaginable, and that is that we do have enemies within this country. One of the most prominent of them, and a guy who seems to be doing a lot to embolden and empower the others, is a fellow by the name of George Soros. Talk a little bit about your insights into his activities and the problems that they constitute for the rest of us.
Oh, you mean the guy I refer to as Nazi collaborator, George Soros?
Well, I think that's one
Um,
description that's apt, yes.
yeah. Well, Soros has accumulated a fund of over 15 billion, that's billion with a B, dollars to put into not just typical Democrat causes, but far left communist causes, everything from sanctuary cities to opening our borders, and perhaps most importantly, training revolutionary cadres
Hmm.
is funded by Soros. And he's by far the biggest funder of the things that are destroying America. Literally billions of dollars every election cycle into these causes. And I suspect, although I couldn't prove it sitting here today, that almost every one of the bad actors leading these organizations that are undermining America is or has been on the payroll of George Soros at one
Wow.
time.
Let me ask you about two that we have been hearing a lot about lately. George Soros's funding for prosecutors, district attorneys, and the like, on the one hand, and secretaries of state across the country as well, George. And it seems as though these are two strategically vectored attacks on sort of cornerstones of our republic. On the one hand, the rule of law, and the other, the election integrity that our system of government depends upon.
Yeah,
Talk a little bit about
absolutely.
what he's up to in those regards and the damage that's being done as a result.
Well, there are dozens of prosecutors across the country and and candidates for elected prosecutor uh, who are pursuing these far left jailbreak policies that have been, funded and trained by Soros. San Francisco, she's a Bowden is just one, but suburban DC, even rural Louisiana
Mm.
have prosecutors that have been funded by Soros, and these are the guys behind these no bail release policies that are turning our cities into urban wastelands inhabited by feral humans.
Yeah.
Something right out of Clockwork Orange.
No, it really is, George. And it's not just that they're, giving people, get out of jail free cards. It's that they're simply refusing to prosecute
Yeah,
a whole host of crimes. And again, the lawlessness that is afflicting our cities, among other places, is extremely insidious.
well, yeah,
How about the election integrity piece? We've certainly
well,
seen in election 2020 what secretaries of state who in some cases were Soros elected, I suppose, or in others just sort of falling in line with their willingness to look the other way at election fraud. How serious is his contribution to that problem? Do you think?
well, it's huge, and again, um, where this is worst is at the local county level, or where these guys don't put on huge campaigns. They're relatively obscure, but they're the ones that are the initial vote counters. And
Right.
if Soros dumps a $500,000 into a local election official's campaign, they're going to win.
Hmm.
And they're going to approve drop boxes, unsupervised drop boxes. They're going to mail unsolicited absentee ballots to everybody who's gotten a driver's license in that county, and so on and so on.
Yeah.
And it, is just basically they run elections on the assumption that fraud helps them.
Right. And indeed, it seems it does, at
Yeah,
least
it
on certain
absolutely
occasions.
does.
George, let me switch gears because in terms of elections, one of
Mhm.
that is coming up, obviously, is the congressional midterms. You've done a recent profile on Senator Rick Scott of Florida, who I believe is chairing the Senate election, uh, sort of program for
Yeah.
Republicans. Talk about a platform that he's come forward with, much to the consternation and I gather the upset of the Senate's top Republican, Mitch McConnell.
Yeah. Well, the title of the article was something to the effect of Rick Scott proves that Mitch McConnell is a phony.
Mm.
But essentially, Scott came up with the 11-point platform, if you will, which is all great stuff. It probably, polls at 80% or better with Republicans and independents. It's, energy
Republicans and
security
independents. That's
and
rather
independents.
impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's, it's all solid, conservative, mainstream type of stuff that, if you read out those 11 points at your, morning coffee clutch at any diner in America, everybody would start clapping.
Mm.
Well, McConnell doesn't want to get pinned down to doing anything.
Right.
Uh, and he literally said so. And so,
So, in terms of contract with America or promises for what you will get if you
mhm.
return the Senate to Republican control, Scott is offering some specifics. McConnell is saying we want to run on, I guess, basically a platform that we're not as bad as the other guys. Is that kind of what it
Well,
comes down to?
yeah, and what they don't want after the election is if they do get the majority, they don't want anybody to come up and say, "Hey, wait a minute, this is what you promised to do,"
Right.
because they will revert to being Democrats light if they don't have
At best.
an agenda that they've committed to,
Yeah.
and
That's the
so
establishment, the mono party. I think they call it uniparty.
the uniparty, yeah.
Right. So, if you're a conservative, you'll not only like what uh, Rick Scott is offering, but
Mhm.
you'll be horrified, I suppose, by what is on offer otherwise. And I hope that that will inform decisions this fall. Let
Yeah,
me
me
ask
too.
you, if I can, about one other idea that is now being bruited by Joe Biden
Mhm.
aggressively, and that is, all of this inflation stuff, or at least the very substantial contributor to it, that is
Mhm.
the increased costs of gas, gasoline specifically, is actually just Vladimir Putin's fault. And George Rasley, I think you take a different view of that, but why would he be trying to get away with blaming Putin for what might not actually be entirely his doing?
Well, because, it's literally Joe Biden's fault and the
Mm.
Democrats' fault, and it's, even a one armed economist to could prove and demonstrate that that's the case. I mean, inflation's gone up every month he's been president. Gas prices have gone up every month he's been president, and these are
And that's
policy.
because he started out as president doing a wrecking operation, as I call
Yeah,
it, on our energy security. No.
absolutely. I mean, these are all policy price increases.
Mm.
If you um, reduce our ability to produce oil and gasoline and natural gas here at home, then those increases show up not just at the pump for commuters, they show up for truck drivers who are hauling your produce.
Right.
They show up for plastic manufacturers that are using natural gas as a feedstock. They show up in the cost of fertilizer.
Right.
And so there's a inflationary cycle here that is totally policy driven. It's not that demand has significantly increased, it's that policy driven supply reductions have driven up the prices, and those prices, particularly of energy, flow through the entire economy.
They do indeed. And to the extent that they're damaging the entire economy, George Rasley, you can understand why Biden would want to deflect blame, but is he likely to be able to get away with it quickly?
No, I don't think so. I mean, Rasmussen did a recent poll that showed that substantial majority of Americans blame Biden's policies for inflation, and so contrary to what Democrats think, Americans aren't stupid.
They are not
Um,
stupid.
they occasionally do dumb stuff like
Yeah.
letting Biden get away with stealing the election, but they're not stupid. They understand economics and they understand these are policy driven inflation numbers.
Right. But this is why it's so vital that they have information that they can
Hmm.
rely on. And it's something that you provide at conservativehq.com.
Yeah.
I'm so pleased to have you with us, George Rasley, talking about Senator Scott, among other things. Come back to us again soon with updates, if you would. Next up, we're going to speak with Ambassador Pete Hoekstra about Europe. Lessons learned, what's coming next, right after this.